Folks, welcome back. It's Miracle Monday. In hour two, we have something really special on the miraculous side. There's a film coming out tomorrow called "Show Me Your Glory." The man behind that film, we've had him on before. Eric Swithin is coming up in hour two. He's like a big deal guest. He's experienced the miraculous, like you just can't make it up. And it's very encouraging when you hear stories like his. So that's coming up in hour two today. The film is Show Me Your Glory, and the website is showmeyourglory.com. It is nuts. It's nuts. You can check it out now. Showmeyourglory.com. It's in theaters tomorrow. Uh, tomorrow. In theaters tomorrow. It's like 2-3 days in theaters this week. Showmeyourglory.com. But right now, in other miraculous news, we have our friend John Zmirak on, who I believe is still a Catholic, despite the fact that we may have Pope Francis 2.0 at the Vatican. John Zmirak, what do you have to say?
Well, obviously, it is too early. It is too early to come to a judgment about this guy, but I'm not super encouraged based on his track record and the things he has said publicly on social media. His track record, apparently, he was the hatchet man that Pope Francis was involved in Pope Francis removing Bishop Strickland of Texas.
Stop right there. Stop right there. I heard that yesterday. That is the most damning evidence. Anything else you say is almost doesn't rise to the level of what you just said. Now, most people listening are not familiar with who Strickland was, so please educate us on what you just said.
Bishop Joseph Strickland of Tyler, Texas, was not a firebrand. He didn't say extremist things. He didn't excommunicate people from the pulpit. He didn't do anything radical. He was just a real Catholic, and he was dubious about the lockdown during the global COVID panic. He was dubious about the dangerous untested vaccine that was made using bits of unborn babies. He was strongly pro-life. He was not on board with the open borders agenda, from which the bishops have been profiting. Remember, the Catholic Church in America, my church, is an immigration Ponzi scheme and a gay employment agency with a Catholic problem. But they're solving that Catholic problem one bishop at a time, getting rid of one man like Strickland, one priest like Father Frank Pavone. What we saw under Pope Francis, here's what Pope Francis was Stalin. I think this guy's Khrushchev. Okay, the new Pope I think will be Khrushchev. So by comparison to Francis, it will look like a thaw.
The way you pronounce that, I'm not sure everybody got it. So the Francis
Pope Francis
was like Joseph Stalin,
Stalin,
and this one is like Nikita
like
Khrushchev.
Nikita Khrushchev. He will be, he's not Stalin. There probably won't be artificial famines in the Catholic Church, which is a good thing. But this new
what
man,
you just said, though, I want to be clear. That is unbelievable to me. In other words, as bad as the new Pope's social media is, we get all these bad signs. But you're telling me that you think he was behind getting rid of Bishop Strickland from Tyler, Texas. That is,
I don't know, but I don't know whether it was his idea or if he was just following orders. I don't know. I don't want to overstep. I don't want to sit and pretend that I know more than I do. He was involved. He was involved in picking a lot of the terrible bishops we now have. He seems to be friends with Bishop Supich, Cardinal of Chicago, who is maybe the worst human being in North America. When it was exposed that Planned Parenthood was selling aborted baby parts illegally, and David DeLayden and others exposed that, Archbishop Supich went to the Chicago Tribune and said, "This is an outrage, but no more of an outrage than the Republicans cutting Medicaid or deporting illegal immigrants or executing murderers." He said that. So what?
Okay, so I'm sorry, Cupich said that, and you're saying that Pope Leo is friendly with Cupich.
He's from Chicago. where Supich is. They're from the same theological school. They seem to be friendly. They've been part. Chicago was the epicenter of the Catholic radical left under Cardinal Bernardine, who brought in Saul Alinsky activists to turn the Catholic, I think, Campaign for Human Development into a left-wing activist like community organizing thing. Barack Obama sent a warm congratulations to the newly elected Pope, and I'm not surprised. It was the Chicago Archbishop Bernardine who wrote the check that sent Barack Obama to his first Saul Alinsky training program as a community organizer.
How can that be? How can Bernardine, one of the main figures in the American Catholic Church, have not seen that Saul Alinsky
He did see it. He did see it. Bernardine was an evil man who wanted to destroy the church as we know it and replace it with this corrupt lavender human trafficking organization that Catholic Charities is, and that many parts of the Catholic Church in America became. Last Sunday, they did a second collection at Mass, and it was for Catholic Charities. And I got up and walked out because I would rather send money directly to the government of North Korea than to Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities works with plenty of evidence that they work with cartels, getting people into the country to safe houses and hiding them from ICE. And some of those are kids who fall into the hands of the sex industry or slave labor. You look at the work of Elizabeth Yore. She's a group, YORE. She has an organization, Your Children, and she tracks all this stuff. She's on Steve Bannon all the time. My point is, this Pope comes out of the bureaucratized, cash-rich, federally funded wing of the church that Doge cut off. All the money, $5 billion. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, $3 billion to U.S. Catholic bishops in 15 years, most of it for dealing with immigrants. In other words, circumventing our laws. We are paying the Catholic Church and other churches to circumvent U.S. immigration law. And
give me, I know that the current Pope some time ago retweeted an article in the Washington Post written by New York Cardinal Dolan about immigration. I have to say, I think of Cardinal Dolan as basically a good guy, so I was upset to see him taking that stand.
Dolan is not a good guy. Dolan is not. He's not a good. He's not a terrible guy. He's the least terrible of the major American bishops. You know, he is the least terrible. He is like maybe the Gorbachev. If Pope Francis was Stalin, Dolan is the Gorbachev. He's still bad.
That's pretty good though to be Gorbachev compared to. I mean, so my question is,
Yeltsin, maybe a drunk Yeltsin. Anyway,
but what is the best case scenario you could make? In other words, there's always, even people who are wrong have a point, right? So what would the point be that Cardinal Dolan is making on immigration that's worth our at least hearing, okay, he has a point, we don't agree where he comes out, but why would Cardinal Dolan be saying something like that? Or what is he saying, I guess?
I'll tell you why Catholic bishops are for open borders. 40% of those who grow up or raised Catholic in America leave. 40% leave and never come back. High percentages of the immigrants who come leave. But it's basically a way to keep warm bodies in the pews so that your numbers aren't obviously going down. If you're a shepherd and you don't vaccinate your sheep, you don't take care of your sheep, so half of them die or 40% of them die. If you can steal sheep from a neighboring pen to make up the numbers, maybe your boss won't see that you're a failure as a shepherd. It's simple. It's to get warm bodies into the pews and to get money from the federal government. I want to be clear. There is no moral case. There is zero merit, absolutely zero merit in anything Pope Francis or these bishops are saying on immigration. It is 100% self-interested. Every dollar that they paid out in sex abuse claims, they made back processing immigrants with money from the federal government. So no, I'm sorry. I cannot give them the benefit of the doubt. Remember, the U.S. bishops opposed absolutely every measure Donald Trump took
Yeah.
to try to enforce our immigration laws. Every
John, hang on,
deportation.
hang on. We've got plenty more folks. I need to remind you, we're doing a campaign with Christian Solidarity International. It's a great opportunity for you and your family. You can find out more if you go to metaxastalk.com. You have to go there, so you got to write it down, metaxastalk.com. At the top of the web page, you'll see a link. This is an exciting opportunity, metaxastalk.com. Check that out, metaxastalk.com. At the top of the page, you'll see the banner. It's an exciting opportunity to get your kids involved in what God is doing. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking to John Zmirak about the state of the Catholic Church and Pope Leo XIV. Okay, John, a lot of really upsetting information. I mean, the idea that this Pope, while he was cardinal, put out all these tweets that seem to say he's for open borders and he's criticizing J.D. Vance and criticizing Trump and all this idiotic stuff. Is there anything positive about him?
Yes,
I mean, but before we get to the positive thing, I still want to say what you said about Bishop Strickland. That's amazing to me. It's one thing for somebody not to like a conservative, but for them to get rid of him the way they got rid of him, that's really wicked. And Pope Francis was behind that. And you're saying that Pope Leo, you think, was involved in that.
Was
Why
involved.
would Pope Leo want to push somebody like Strickland out? What is Strickland doing that is so grievous that they would want to do that?
Strickland said some things critical of Pope Francis's heretical statements about ceremonies for same-sex couples in churches and the death penalty. Let's remember how radical Pope Francis and his Vatican statements were. A couple of months ago, they came out with a document saying that capital punishment is always and everywhere wrong, always has been. So presumably in the Covenant of Noah, that was wrong. Executing the Nazi war criminals, that must have been wrong. Deporting anyone from any country from any reason is wrong, like the slave trade or prostitution. They actually compared deporting illegal immigrants to permitting the slave trade or running a house of prostitution. But they did carve out exceptions for Catholics to perform or receive sex change operations. If they're really psychologically distressed, then they can have sex changes and you can give them sex changes. All of this is outrageous, flaming heresy. This is most appalling nonsense. And now all has the Vatican stamp of approval. And yes, you can say, but it wasn't taught infallibly. That doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. The whole infallible, fallible distinction doesn't matter in effect, because we are ordered as Catholics by Lumen Gentium, a document of Vatican II, to give religious submission to everything that the Pope says, even if it's not infallible. So when Pope Francis said you should have open borders, he didn't teach it ex cathedra. It doesn't matter, because we are obliged to at least shut up about it, but we're really supposed to support it. And anyone who doesn't support it will get fired from his job in Catholic organizations. He won't be promoted to pastor. If he's a bishop like Strickland, he'll get fired. You see how it works? It's like the Communist Party line. It has no divine guarantee. These are, remember, are not infallible statements, but you have to go along with them or you will be crushed.
Okay, so what you're saying again is it's very bad news. In other words, this Pope Leo, seems to have been involved in a lot of terrible stuff, in putting out a lot of terrible stuff. We know, and I know this, Al Gore, who is still technically alive and speaking, he put out a tweet on X raving about the choice of Pope, because this guy is going to take action on climate change. This is Al Gore, who is somehow still speaking publicly, even though the track record would suggest that he should hide. He's speaking publicly, praising Pope Leo, the new Pope, because he is big on climate change.
Climate change is one of the golden calves that they're using to replace Christianity. They use climate change to justify taking total control over the economy, stripping us of reliable, safe energy, reducing us to reliance on the wind and the waves for energy, like medieval peasants, hoping the windmill will return so that some of their corn will be ground. The fetish of the climate, it justifies an absolutely global power grab. And it's worth reading what Archbishop Vigano says about this, Vigano. He was somebody who was driven out of being a bishop and finally excommunicated for criticizing Pope Francis's public heretical statements. Now, I want to be fair to the new incoming Pope. I don't think he's a zealot like Pope Francis. I don't think he's a mean-spirited, cruel, sociopathic persecutor like Pope Francis. He seems like an apparatchik. He seems like a company man. And the company line has been globalism and feminism and being inclusive of the rainbow flags and guitar masses. That has been the official policy for certainly the 12 to 15 years of Pope Francis, but it was dominant in the church since the 60s. Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict tried to swim upstream. They tried to swim against the stream and preserve something of Catholic culture and Orthodox Catholic teaching in the face of a very hostile world. Whereas the Catholic left they're like the Sadducees who worked with Pontius Pilate. They have no kingdom.
Okay. We have to go to another break. We've got plenty more coming up with John Zmirak. Folks, if you haven't done it yet, go to metaxastalk.com, click on the CSI banner. Some of you would prefer to call. And you know what? I get that. I'm going to give you a phone number because you can't really call without a phone number, I've been told. Here's the phone number. Please write it down and call it up. You'll see 888-253-3522, 888-253-3522. And now in Espanol, 888-253-3522. Call it up. You'll find a nice person at the other end. They can explain to you how you can help. It's a big deal. Please help. Welcome back. We're talking to John Zmirak about the new pope. Have you heard? Hey, kids, have you heard there's a new pope in town? And he's ticked. Actually, no, there's a new pope in town. And John, you were just saying
I was saying
he's
that
kind of an apparatchik, kind of like a Mike Pence conservative.
Yeah, it's like we're going from President Barack Obama to President Mike Pence. They're both kind of not on our side, but one of them is a zealot. One of them is a wild-eyed fanatic. That was Pope Francis. Pope Francis developed a cult of personality. He aggressively cultivated that. All that fake humility. He did hugely expensive renovations to the Vatican, wasting millions of dollars to make his rooms look more humble so that he could project the humble thing. He ripped out beautiful Renaissance stuff and made like brutalist plaster walls so that it would look more humble. The virtue signaling was just horrendous. I think the new pope is not a sociopath. I don't think he's an atheist, which is what I thought Pope Francis was. Though he's not an atheist now. Pope Francis, I think, has discovered that God exists in spades. The new pope, I just think he's part of a very corrupt, thoroughly worldly, low energy, bureaucratic money-making operation, bringing in money through immigration, getting money from the federal government, dispersing it through grants, and never going against Caesar. I mean, during COVID, this new pope was one of the big proponents of the lockdown, one of the big proponents of the vaccine. That kind of tells you all you needed to know, that he's on board with big pharma and the globalist movement to subject us to bureaucratic control. He's retweeted a Democratic senator mocking people for offering thoughts and prayers after a mass shooting, and calling for gun control. So this is a guy who apparently doesn't believe in our gun rights, doesn't think we have the right to maintain national borders or deport illegals. It's all politically very bad for America. bad for Western civilization. On the positive side, I don't think he's going to keep persecuting conservative Catholics like the Latin Mass churches. I don't think he's going to see all the green, the shoots of green in the church and go spray them with weed killer the way Pope Francis did. Pope Francis was a petty, vindictive man. He was, if you remember Hogan's Heroes, Colonel Klink was relatively harmless, but then the SS would show up every few episodes, and it was really scary when the SS generals showed up.
It was always scary when General Burkhalter
That's
showed
right.
up.
All right. So Pope Francis was General Burkhalter. I think the new Pope might just be Colonel Klink.
Colonel Klink or maybe Schultz. No, Schultz
no,
was too
that's
nice.
Dolan. Dolan is Sergeant Schultz.
You know what? Wow. We've nailed it.
This
Dolan
is on the show.
is Sergeant. I'm going to have to face Cardinal Dolan. I mean, I've met Cardinal Dolan a number of times. I was on his podcast like 14 years ago. He read my Bonhoeffer book twice, and I know Cardinal Dolan. I haven't seen him in a while, but the president has appointed me to a Religious Liberty Commission, and I know that Cardinal Dolan is on that commission. So maybe I'll get to talk to Cardinal Dolan about this. But it's so funny that you say that if we're talking about Hogan's Heroes, then ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk about Hogan's Heroes. We need to talk about Hogan's Heroes. So John, thank you.
You're welcome.
Colonel Klink, you would say
the new Pope is relatively, I think, is like Colonel Klink. He's on the wrong side, but he's not a bad guy. He's not General Burkhalter.
He's just doing the best he can, trying to stay out of trouble. John Banner, who played Schultz, he's a good guy, but he's not exactly, he's not going to buck the system too hard. You're saying that's Cardinal Dolan. And of course, Bergoglio, which is to say the late Pope Francis, was General Burkhalter. It's so funny because a lot of people are listening. I know they've never watched Hogan's Heroes, but
they need to, because
I have to say,
if we don't study history, we are condemned to repeat it.
I just want to say that I will never forget when Colonel Klink, played by Werner Klemperer, said to General Burkhalter, "But General Burkhalter, it's not Saturday night. I'm afraid we don't have time for this." And General Burkhalter brilliantly responded, "Every night is Saturday night when Fräulein Hilda is around." I've waited years to do that scene. So thank you, John, for allowing me to be General Burkhalter on my own radio program. Very, very important, folks. So this is unbelievable. Listen, John, there's so much to talk about. We didn't talk about last week, at the end of last week, I guess it was Thursday, Joe Biden appeared on The View. It was one of the most bizarre, embarrassing things. Why in the world would they wheel him out? What do you think is the point of that? Is the point that like he needs money? What do you think?
Yeah, he needs money because all the people who were shipping him bribes have stopped. What's the point? Like he used to be getting all this money from all these NGOs and corrupt business deals. That's all shut off. So it's like nobody wants Madonna to sing at their kid's birthday party anymore, and nobody wants Hunter Biden to run their energy company anymore. I don't know why. I mean, he was so manifestly qualified.
I would feel better if you could tie this back to Hogan's Heroes. I know that's asking a lot, but we'll just let it go. Okay, so to wrap up, just because we only have 60 seconds, this Pope is bad, but not as bad as Francis.
I would say he is a company man who's going to continue the inertia, a gradual decline in mainstream Catholic institutions. But unlike Pope Francis, I don't think he's going to aggressively persecute the conservative orders and parishes that have somehow survived the artificial famine that was Pope Francis's pontificate.
Which reminds me of when General Burkhalter said to Klink, "Every night is Saturday night. Then Fräulein Hilda is around." Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case. John Zmirak, it's
Bring out the
always
worst in you.
a joy to have you on the program, my friend. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. We'll have you back to talk about more fun stuff. Thank you very
Okay.
much.